Okay, so welcome to today's deep dive. Today we will be talking about Spark's newest program, coDA, the Co-Development Apprenticeship Program. Before I get too much farther, can I just have someone please confirm that you're able to see my screen so that I'm not
We
talking
see it.
without? Perfect. Thank you so much. My name is Ryan Zimmermas. I am a project manager with Spark. I'll be helping with the rollout of this program. So if you're interested in this program and have any questions at any point, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. We'll start today. I'm going to start with a quick background on Spark and on kind of how this program came about. And then we will dive in to the details, which I'm sure is what you're all here for on coDA, our newest program. And then, as I mentioned, we'll have some time for questions at the end. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat or write them down, and you can come off mute at the end of the presentation if you have any questions. I'm hoping to address most of the questions throughout the presentation, so hopefully we'll cover everything. But if I miss anything, please feel free to drop those in the chat or write them down, and we'll get to them at the end. So wanted to start just with reminding everybody about Spark's mission. Our mission is to help profoundly transform disinvested neighborhoods into prosperous and thriving communities. We accomplish this mission in a number of ways. We have our Developer Academy, which a lot of people know about, and I think a lot of people on this call may have gone through the Developer Academy. We have the Fabric Lab, our Urban Design Lab on 24th and Lake. We do different projects like the North Omaha Trail that you can see in this video here. Spark Capital is our lending arm where we help finance our developers who've gone through the Developer Academy. So there's a lot of different ways that we accomplish this mission. But we've also noticed that there are some problems facing disinvested communities that make it harder to accomplish this mission. So I wanted to start by talking about these problems here, and I'm just going to make sure that everybody's on mute. I think I'm getting some feedback here. There we go. Okay. So we've noticed two distinct problems facing many disinvested neighborhoods that get in the way of them becoming prosperous and thriving communities. If you're on this call, you probably know these problems quite well. They're really two sides of the same coin. Number one, our neighborhoods need more housing. And number two, right now, outsiders are doing most of the building. So I'm going to dive in a little bit on each of these problems. The first one being that there's not enough housing where we need it. Specifically, when we're looking at North Omaha, there are a lot of vacant, scattered infill lots that have remained dormant for years. I worked at DED before joining Spark. I was a housing rep, had the privilege of getting to talk to so many different people from across Omaha and greater Nebraska during my time at DED. And one thing that I learned through those conversations is that every community needs housing, but each of them have a unique set of challenges that are getting in the way of getting the type of housing that they need. So they all share the similar problem, but it presents itself in different ways. So in North Omaha, there's a lot of vacant lots, right? In South Omaha, it might be rehabilitation. In Dundee, they need more missing middle. In a lot of different rural communities, every city, town, bedroom community, region faces different obstacles when it comes to housing development, and there's really no one-size-fits-all approach that's going to solve all of housing everywhere. So if we dive in on North Omaha, this is a plan that was a redevelopment plan was created by the city in 2021, just 3 years ago, part of the Forever North redevelopment plan in the 24th and Lake area. And as you can see here, 36 acres, over 16% of all land use is vacant. And these vacant infill lots aren't necessarily clustered in a way that makes it easy to get an economy of scale with a large scale development. So really, for something like this, what we need is small scale incremental housing development to tackle each of these lots one at a time. And we're really, really lucky to have so many people in our community who've gone through the Developer Academy, who want to do this work and want to reactivate some of those vacant lots by doing infill development, which is exactly what we need. The second problem is that outside investors and large nonprofit developers aren't really changing the underlying market conditions, even though they're the ones that are doing most of the investment and building in those communities right now. In many cases, they're only reinforcing those issues. And you might remember the Flatwater Free Press article from a couple of years ago about Vinebrook Homes, an out-of-state private equity landlord that was buying up a bunch of properties in Omaha. Just a perfect example of someone who's coming in from the outside that's not really helping change the underlying situation. What we need is more market-based solutions that add value and character to our existing neighborhoods without resulting in gentrification and displacement. And just to reiterate, this isn't just a North Omaha problem. If you go to any small town anywhere across Nebraska, you'll find no shortage of skeptics when a big out-of-town developer swoops in to take on a major project. But like I mentioned, every community is different. Every community has different challenges when it comes to housing. So how do we solve all of those different unique problems? I would argue we do it in many different ways by activating community members and local entrepreneurs to build up their own communities, to give emerging developers the tools they need to make an impact in their own hometowns. The value of small-scale developers, like many of you on the call here, is their local knowledge, their connections. They know what the problems are. They know what's needed. They have that community-oriented vision that we don't necessarily get with large nonprofit developers or private equity investors. So our challenge then is to scale the number and capacity of small for-profit developers. And that is kind of the two goals of this new initiative. And if you're on the call right now, you are potentially part of the solution to both of those problems that we just talked about. Problem of not having enough housing. The goal is to create more housing. The problem of not having enough local developers in the game. Well, we want to increase the capacity of community-based for-profit developers. Spark wants to create more housing and build the capacity. That's what we're about here. And how we've done that in the past, just to visualize this, is we've taken this approach to having on one hand the Developer Academy that provides the knowledge and networks that emerging developers need to get into development. We're actually having a Developer Academy in a couple of weeks that we're really excited about at the end of October. And that's something we're going to continue doing. It's a really valuable resource for developers to get into the game. On the other hand, we've had Spark Capital provide financing, one-on-one technical assistance, and ongoing educational opportunities for our emerging developers who've already launched their own independent projects. And a lot of them have come up through the Developer Academy and fed into Spark Capital and the technical assistance offerings and financing that we provide on that end. We've seen a lot of success with this. We have some star Developer Academy graduates that are taking on independent projects or working for development companies or advocating for more equitable development ecosystem. But one thing that we've noticed is there's also a lot of barriers to development, even after you've gone through the Developer Academy, that make it hard to get into the game. The bottom line is that development is hard, right? If it were easy, everyone would do it, but it's not easy. So some of those barriers that our Developer Academy graduates face, we actually have a survey out right now. So if you're a Developer Academy graduate and you're on this call, you should have received this survey. Please take it if you haven't already. We've gotten some feedback already. So thanks to those of you who've already responded to this, but fear of failure is a big one, right? If you're a brand new developer, you're an entrepreneur, you don't have the wealth cushion that experienced developers have. You literally can't afford to fail. So that's a major barrier. Land is expensive. It's expensive to hold land while you wait for a permit or financing. You might have gone through Developer Academy, but lack that applied experience as a developer when you're taking on your first project. That can be really difficult to not have gone through development before, right? How do you get experience if you don't have experience? And then access to capital is probably number one. We saw this on, I think, every single one of our survey responses so far, that we're talking here, when we're talking about emerging developers, about startups with small balance sheets that can't access development incentives that are geared towards nonprofit housing developers. So it's really difficult to access capital for those emerging developers. I also want to share with you this real estate development success triangle. I got this from Christopher Senegal. He's an accomplished Black developer from Houston, Texas. He spoke at a conference that some of the Spark staff went to in Tulsa, Oklahoma earlier this year, back in May. And his idea is that in order to be a successful real estate developer, you need three things. You need opportunity. That means site control and a development concept. You need experience. That means knowledge, skills, and connections to get a project done. And you need capital. That means cash, equity, financing to pay for the project, to make it happen. And if you're missing any one of these three, you won't be successful. And we've seen this play out. So the question that we have is, how can we better support our developers in a way that addresses all corners of the success triangle for real estate development, especially for developers who have gone through the Developer Academy and are ready to start making that transition over to doing independent projects. So that is where our new program comes in that we're talking about today, coDA, or co-development. So I'm going to give you a quick 30-second overview of coDA. And then I'm going to talk more about the why you might be interested in coDA if you're on this call. And then we'll get into some more details. So if you get to get through the overview and the why, and you're like, yeah, this isn't for me, you don't have to stay for the details. I won't be offended. But we will get into the details after we kind of set the bar and just talk about the basics to start. So here's the 30-second overview. What is coDA? coDA is the Co-Development Apprenticeship Program. coDA is about small cohorts of developer apprentices working through real projects alongside each other and alongside Spark, developing housing and earning a modest developer fee in the process. Right now, we are looking at both single-family for-sale housing and multi-family rental housing to start. That's the real basics. We're convening a group of anywhere from 2 to 5 emerging developers to take on a real project as developer apprentices and get that experiential learning. Here's where coDA fits in that Spark ecosystem that we looked at earlier. It's a bridge, right? So we're bridging the gap. We're completing Spark's approach here. coDA is like the Developer Academy 2.0. Day 2 is what they've called it in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They have a Developer Academy 2.0. So this is about addressing those barriers to development that make it difficult for Developer Academy graduates to make a leap to independent projects. And I want to emphasize here too that you might be at any point in your real estate development journey. You might be interested in applying for the Developer Academy. You might not need coDA. You might be ready for independent projects, and you might be talking to our lending manager about financing under Spark Capital. Or coDA might be a good fit for you. So there's options for you to plug in, and we will meet you wherever you are on your development journey. So recalling those barriers to development that we talked about a couple slides ago, coDA addresses those in a number of different ways. We give our developer apprentices the tools and confidence to overcome a fear of failure and also absorb some of the risk that makes it difficult to get into development. We hold land in our project pipeline until it's ready for a cohort. We're giving apprentices hands-on experiences, and we're allowing them to lead the development. We're setting them up for that next independent project. We're also giving them access to capital. We'll be pooling participation fees, which I'll talk about in a second when we get into the details. and setting them up with seed capital for the next project. So we want you to be able to take the developer fee that you earn from participating in coDA and roll it into your own independent project and start doing this on your own after going through coDA. We can leverage Spark's track record and balance sheets to help you secure loans for this project. And we also can access philanthropy and government grants as a nonprofit to fill in appraisal or affordability gaps in hard to develop areas. So there's a lot of advantages to coDA that allow you to plug in and address some of those barriers to development. To put it another way, revisiting the success triangle that I just mentioned, coDA provides an opportunity, right? We're providing a project. We have a pipeline of projects that we're preparing, parcels, pieces of land, donated buildings that could be used for development. We're providing experience. These are developer apprentices are getting hands-on experience and leading a development project. And we're leveraging capital by leveraging our balance sheets and nonprofit status to be able to access loans and grants, and pooling those participation fees of developers in those cohorts. And again, I just want to emphasize that coDA is not the only way that we support emerging developers in all aspects of the success triangle. You might already have capital and land, but just need the knowledge and connections from Developer Academy to be successful. Maybe you didn't get into the Developer Academy, but you still want to learn. We have deep dives and build sessions that you can pick and choose to learn more about development topics that are interesting to you or that you need to learn more about. And you may have gone through the Developer Academy and have a project lined up, and maybe you're just looking for a construction loan to close the gap in your capital stack, and Spark Capital can help with that. So just to re-emphasize again that we will meet you wherever you're at in your real estate development journey, whatever your goals may be. So if you're interested in coDA, let's get into some details about who coDA is for. coDA is our kind of ideal developer apprentice candidate, would be a Developer Academy graduate looking for hands-on experience in a development project. You don't have to have gone through the Developer Academy in order to participate, but you are going to need to have some background, right? This is kind of like the Developer Academy too. So you'll need to have at least some real estate knowledge and development knowledge in order to be a successful coDA participant. It's especially geared towards people that are looking to build a track record for future independent projects. coDA is a bridge, so we really want to use this program to get people scaled up and ready to go for their own independent projects. And anyone who's interested is encouraged to apply. So just because you aren't fitting what we might have on the screen here as our ideal candidate, we don't want that to stop you from applying. And you apply for coDA, we can give you feedback about, if you're not ready for coDA yet, what you need to do to get there. So please don't let anything on the screen here discourage you from applying. In terms of eligibility for coDA, we're looking for, as I mentioned, either Developer Academy graduates or individuals that have development knowledge and experience that they can apply to a real project. So you got to have at least the level of real estate experience or knowledge as a Developer Academy graduate. I did mention there's a participation fee. So in the real world, when you're doing development, you need to have capital, you need to have equity and skin in the game. And so this is no different. We've really lowered the bar to make this as accessible as possible. So typically our participation fee will be 0.5 percentage point of the total project cost. So to put that into context, if we're talking about a $300,000 single family new construction home, 0.5% of that would be about $1,500. We don't have scholarships available. We really want our developer apprentices, our participants, to have that skin in the game, to be invested in the project, and have the ability to realize that that investment on the project's completion as a developer fee. So it's not something that you are paying and then not able to get out. It's something that as you go through that project, you might be able to realize that participation fee if the project is completed successfully, Also, we may be able to waive the participation fee for developers who contribute land to a coDA project. That a lot of times you might have access to land, but not cash. So we'll look at that on a case-by-case basis kind of going forward. But if you have a piece of land and you want to develop it independently, and you don't want to go through coDA, we would love to point you to Spark Capital. If you want to contribute land to a coDA project, though, we're happy to entertain what that might look like. And there's a question in the application about that if that applies to you. The other eligibility requirements are really more about your skills and abilities. And this is really something that you'll be able to self-assess. You need to, in order to be a developer, have good written and oral communication skills, sound judgment and decision-making abilities. You'll be making a lot of decisions as a developer. And you'll need to be open to learning and growth. We're kind of all learning through this together in these cohorts. And so that's really who we're looking for to go through this program, is somebody who's willing to learn and grow. And also someone who's really willing to commit to a project for at least 2 years. If you are thinking about leaving Omaha and moving on to another city in the next 6 months, coDA is not for you. coDA is for people that are going to be able to see this project through to completion for a project period of at least 2 years. Development takes time. And in order to get the full experience of doing a development, we want to make sure that you're committed to stick through with a project all the way to seeing it across the finish line, to make sure that you have the full range of experience and the best coDA experience possible. So we have an application that is now open on our website. At the end of this, I will take you through our website so you can see exactly where that is. And how that selection process will work is we have selection criteria that are posted on the website, and I'll go through those a little bit later as well. If you meet the selection criteria and are recommended by our Developer Academy Advisory Group to participate in coDA, we will enroll you in one of these 3 possible outcomes here. So we'll have folks that we have matched with a potential project. They'll be considered pre-selected until you've contributed the participation fee and gone through our orientation and signed a developer services agreement with us. You're pre-selected. You might be waitlisted if you meet all of the criteria that we're looking for in a coDA participant, but we don't have a project ready for you yet. We'll put you on our wait list and we'll hold you there until we get a project available. I'll talk a little bit more about what the timeline of different projects will look like on a future slide here. But we're hoping to build up a pipeline of both developer apprentices and projects that we can continually pair and pull people off of the wait list as we go. And then if you aren't able to meet those minimum eligibility requirements that we just talked about, you'll be considered not selected. We'll let you know what you need to do to improve to be able to be either on the wait list or selected and paired with a project. We'll be pairing, Spark will be kind of playing matchmaker. So we'll be pairing developers with projects and with each other to build successful development teams. One thing, if you've been through any kind of development or the Developer Academy, that you'll know is it really takes a village. It takes a team to put together a development. And so we want to make sure that we're rounding out those teams by, for example, pairing someone who's got a lot of experience as a general contractor, maybe with someone who has experience as a real estate agent, so that we've got a full filled out development team that's well-rounded. And then, as I mentioned, as we build out our project pipeline and more project opportunities become available, we'll be able to pull more cohorts together. We do have a priority for participants who are Developer Academy graduates. For our targeted populations, which includes Black and Indigenous people of color, women, and gender expansive individuals, and based on geography, we want to give priority to people who live in or have connections to the neighborhoods that are being developed. That's part of the model here. that will kind of determine how quickly you're able to move off the wait list and be paired with a project. So again, if you don't meet any of these priority populations, you're still more than welcome to apply. It just might take a little bit longer to get you paired with a project because we are going to prioritize these different groups here. In terms of the legal structure of how this is going to work, how participation in coDA works, Spark will own the project. Spark will carry the risk of the project. That's one of the ways that we're able to mitigate some of those barriers to development, is by carrying the risk associated with developing a project. So the way that the participants will be involved is they will be retained. They'll sign a contract for their professional services as developers during the project period. So you're signing on to be a developer for the project that Spark owns. And in return, in compensation for your services, your professional services as a developer, you'll be able to receive a share of the developer fee associated with that project. The for sale side, that happens when the project sells, right? You build the house, maybe it takes you 2 years, and the house sells, and the sale proceeds are distributed in part to that developer fee that you would then realize. On the rental side, we are looking at giving our participants an equity stake in a project-specific LLC once that project is completed and starts to lease up. And that means realizing some of the benefits that come along with owning rental properties and rental real estate, like depreciation and the tax benefits associated with that, as well as the appreciation of the project and some of the cash flow and once that project sells. So the other idea is that we'd like to have our participants who have that equity stake in the project specific LLC participate in overseeing that property, making sure that the property manager is being diligent and that the units are staying leased up, and making sure that the rental is ultimately successful during any kind of affordability period that might be associated with a rental property. And in addition, our hope is that as an exit strategy in 5 or 10 or 15 years, that the participants who have that equity stake will be able to leverage that equity stake to purchase the property, to buy out Spark after the expiration of any kind of affordability period. So we want to make sure that we are maintaining community ownership of the projects that we are developing in collaboration with our developer apprentices. And I think the rental property equity stake offers a great opportunity to make that happen. We've built out a comprehensive program to provide wraparound support so that you have the support you need to be successful in these developments as developer apprentices. That will start with an orientation meeting and a strategic planning retreat. It's really important to establish some shared values and goals and a vision for a project at the very beginning. Disagreements can happen when you are working on any kind of a group project, right? And co-development is no different. So we want to make sure that you as a participant and your co-developers are on the same page and can establish some basic shared visions and principles at the beginning. And then we'll have touch points throughout each stage of the development, all the way through completion of the project and evaluation. That will include weekly huddles with someone at Spark to make sure that everything's going well, to be able to catch any issues that might be coming up and address those head on. We'll do monthly reviews, kind of deep dives of different development topics that are relevant. So if we're about to RFP a construction firm, we might the month before have a deep dive on RFPs and how to write a good RFP and how to select a good general contractor, right? And we'll make sure we tailor those to whatever stage we're in the development. We'll also do quarterly one-on-one check-ins just to make sure. Sometimes it's easier to speak honestly one-on-one than it is when you're in a group about what you're struggling with and what's going really well. So we want to make sure there's constant communication and check-ins. And then we'll have a graduation ceremony and a ribbon cutting once that development is complete. Yeah, we're looking forward to. I think development will take a lot of time. It's going to be hard, but we're going to try to have some fun while we do it. And the graduation will definitely be a culmination of that fun. So to get into the timeline here, our applications are currently open. They just opened last week, Thursday or Friday. So they're hot off the press. We are planning on leaving our application open. So if you participate in the Developer Academy or if you've applied for the Developer Academy in the past, usually the Developer Academy application is open for about a month, a couple of weeks. And then we close it and evaluate who is selected to participate in the Developer Academy. For coDA, because we're going to be building this pipeline of different prospective project opportunities, we might not know exactly when those project opportunities are going to come up. We're going to leave the application open. And once per quarter, we'll have our Developer Academy Advisory Group review our applications and consider our developer apprentice applicants for cohorts. So with that being said, our priority deadline is going to be November 1st. So in about a month. If you're interested in being considered for our first coDA cohort and you apply by November 1st, we will consider you for that first cohort. If you miss that deadline, no big deal, because as I mentioned, application will stay open. You can apply at any time, and then each quarter we'll go back to our new applications and look through and decide who else we can add to project opportunities and who else we can add to our wait list. Our goal is to have 1 and possibly 2 active cohorts formed by the end of this year. So for those that apply by November 1st, depending on the interest that we have for the program and the qualifications of our applicants, we're hoping to start our first 1 or 2 cohorts this December. Next year, we're hoping to add a couple more active cohorts to that, at least 1, maybe 2 more in 2025. Of course, our cohort from 2024 will still be going at the time. So we'll have up to 4 active cohorts by the end of next year. And depending on how everything goes, we'll hopefully have anywhere from 4 to 6 cohorts by the end of 2026. So if you do math, I mentioned we'll have 2 to 5 co-developers in each cohort. So we'll only be able to support probably 5 or so developers this year, maybe 5 or so next year, and maybe 5 or so the following year. So it's not going to be something that a ton of applicants are going to be able to participate in, at least at first, just because these are going to be relatively small cohorts. And we're going to start slow and hopefully scale this up over time. And I say that just to say we do expect this to be pretty competitive with limited spots. So just want to level set with everyone that this will be a competitive process and we'll hopefully be able to show that we have a lot of demand for this program so that we can bring on additional project opportunities in the future. But just wanted to kind of flag that for everyone. So that's kind of the overview of coDA. I want to talk a little bit next about how you can get involved, starting with our website and our application. And again, I've got that priority deadline on there for 2024 of November 1st. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a second here. And I'm going to pull up our website. I wanted to walk you through what that looks like. And then I believe we'll have a good amount of time for some questions. So as I'm pulling this up, if you have any questions, please drop those in the chat or write them down and we'll go to questions in just a second. Okay, so when you go to the coDA webpage and scroll down, we've got a little bit of information that we already covered today. And right below our kind of initial information is the Apply Now button. So if you on that, it'll take you to our application, which is in Microsoft Forms. We estimate the application will take about 30 to 60 minutes to complete. So make sure you have time to get through it before you start. We'll ask some of the same questions that we ask on our Developer Academy application, but we'll be asking some different questions too, specific to coDA, about what kind of coDA properties or projects you might be interested in. So that'll take you through all of that. It should be pretty self-explanatory. One thing I just want to note on the application, if you do decide to apply, after you hit submit, if you could please email me your resume. Unfortunately, the form does not allow you to upload your resume. So if there's a question on there that reminds you to please email me your resume, but just wanted to reiterate that. If you do apply, please send that to me. If not, if you forget, I'll track you down, Maury. We already talked a little bit about Spark's development ecosystem and where coDA fits in here. We do have links here to the Developer Academy and some of our Spark Capital and ongoing education offerings. If you decide coDA is not the perfect fit for you and you're actually at a different point in your development journey, you can feel free to look through that. We've also got our eligibility requirements that I went through spelled out here. And if you keep scrolling down here to the selection process, this kind of details what I already talked about with the selection process. There's a link here for our selection criteria, and we have a worksheet where you can self-evaluate where you're at and understand kind of where you need to be in order to be considered for coDA. The three areas that we're really looking at are going to be your experience, your track record, and your readiness. So just to go through this real quick here. When it comes to experience, we're not looking for you to be a total success. We're not looking for you to be an expert. We're just looking for some experience in community development, real estate, or maybe owning rental properties, enough that you're dangerous, right? But not quite at the expert level yet. The track record, it's okay if you don't have a track record. This is what the purpose of this program is. It's okay if you have mixed results, maybe some successes and some failures. We're not looking necessarily for seasoned developers. We're looking for apprentices that want to become seasoned developers. And then for readiness, we just want you to be ready to take on a new project. That means you're willing to commit for 2 years. You're not overextended currently with a bunch of different projects. If you've got a lot on your plate right now and don't have the capacity to take on, this is a real development project. We don't want you to be overextended. And then I have listed down here the priority populations that we talked about that will prioritize you. So this first box is what we're looking at for meeting the requirements for being on at least our wait list. And then when we're looking at pulling folks off of the wait list and pairing them with projects, that's where we're starting to consider the priority populations down here. So I'm going to go back to the website and just keep scrolling down here for a couple more links that are be helpful. We do have a pretty extensive program guidelines document. I'll just click on that here. This is an overview of the program. I kind of went through at a 30,000-foot view today. If you want to get into the details about how this program works, the costs, the benefits, the application process, all of that is here in the coDA program overview, which is linked right under the want to learn more here, the program guidelines. So please take a look at that. If you're considering applying for coDA, I would recommend reading through the program guidelines before you apply so that you have a sound understanding of how it works. We will go through all of that if you're selected at our orientation to make sure that everybody's on the same page, but it's always great to use that resource to make sure you understand what you're getting into before you apply. I already went through the selection criteria that was linked up above here, but there's another link down here. We will post a link to the recording from today right here where we have the upcoming information sessions. This was for signing up for today, but this is where the recording will live. And then if you are interested in getting emails about coDA, you can plug in your information on the sign up form below over here. So I'm going to stop sharing again here. And I believe that is it. Let me just make sure. Yep, that was my last slide. That was the last information that I had prepared for today. Hopefully, everybody got something out of that. And if you have any questions at this point, we'll head over to the chat. I might ask Deanna on the call here to help me navigate through the chat here.
Yes, we have a lot of questions, so
all right, let's do it.
Please keep them coming. Our first one, if there are multiple developers on a project, how do you decide the equity splits at the end? Someone who provided the land might want more equity than someone who comes on just as a co-developer or with specialized expertise to help the development.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. We will approach that kind of on a case by case basis. So obviously, if you're contributing more upfront, then there's going to be a bigger stake for you, right? So if you're contributing the land and the land is valued at higher than what the patient fee would otherwise be, there's more risk involved there. There would also be a higher reward. That will be something that when it comes to the developer fee, or if we're talking about a rental property and an equity stake, that'll be something that we talk about very early on at the orientation meeting. That will be something that'll be listed in our developer services agreement contract, which we'll go through very early on in the process. And so we can negotiate through at that time. But yeah, we on the rental side, you would have an equity stake in that project. So we're going to have to take a look at how that works with the project pro forma and the budget. It's hard to give an answer that's a one size fits all answer for every project, because every project is different. Every project is going to be structured a little bit differently and have a different budget. So if that's something that you want to talk through more, to talk about that. But I think in a lot of cases, it's going to be kind of a case by case.
Next question. I'm enrolled in the upcoming Developer Academy at the end of October. I noticed one of the questions asked if I was a graduate. Do I respond as yes or no?
Yeah, great question. I think I would go ahead and say, for the purposes of this, as long as you think you're going to make it through the Developer Academy, which we hope you will, and congratulations on getting in, by the way, you can go ahead and say yes. There's also a question on the application that asks if there's anything that you wanted to note that wasn't already reflected in the application. So you can just put in there that you're currently enrolled. We also have a list of who's currently enrolled, so we'll be able to verify that. And we can treat you as though you are a graduate as you're going through, since you'll have graduated by the time we're doing our first coDA cohort in December.
Very good. Someone asked for Ryan's email address. That is now in the chat if anyone needs it. Next question, will you make a PDF or Word version of the application available for review since it's so long? This would allow applicants to think through and plan their responses offline and ease the completion process.
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually do have a PDF version already made, so we can just add that to the website. That's a great idea.
Perfect. Do applicants get to know the project they are being considered for in advance?
Good question. The short answer is no, but our application will ask you questions about what kinds of projects you're interested in. I'll also note that if you are selected for coDA, we'll let you know what the project is early on. And if you decide that it's not for you, you don't want to be part of it, we can put you back into our wait list, into our project pipeline. And as future project opportunities become available, you could be reconsidered for those as well. But yeah, the application should give you plenty of space to stipulate what kinds of projects you're looking at, whether you want to work on for sale or rental or both, whether you're interested in rehab or new construction. There's a lot of different questions about the types of projects that you're interested in. And then, yeah, as projects become available, we'll be able to look at what you said and pair that with what we have available. I'll also note, because we're keeping our application open, if you change your mind and want to reapply, you can always do that at any time. So if you said, in October of this year that you want to do rentals, and now it's May of 2025, and you're like, you know what, I don't want to do rentals anymore, you could go ahead and submit a new application and update your information that way.
Very good. Next question, is the max project value 300,000?
Yeah, that's not necessarily true. That the maximum would be 300,000. That was just an example. If we are looking at potentially using a Spark Capital Middle Income Workforce Housing Fund loan, if we're interested in that product, the maximum project costs for a middle income workforce housing fund project is $330,000. But we're not restricting these developments to just that specific lending product. It'll kind of depend on what the developers in each cohort, what route they decide to go. And that's going to be something that they'll be leading the process on, is what kind of financing is going to make sense for this project. As I mentioned, we're also looking at, we have one for sale project, one lot that we've acquired that is lined up for our first. We're potentially looking at a rental property that has a project budget of roughly $1.3 million for 4 units. It'd be a rehabilitation project. So those are kind of the first 2 that we have lined up. As we have more projects that come through, we'll be able to kind of keep everyone updated on that.
Next question, is the upcoming Developer Academy closed?
Deanna, that might be a question for you.
Yes, it is closed, but I would say that's not the end of your development journey. We do have ongoing education every month. We have our deep dives, we have our build sessions, and these sessions have a lot of the same information that you would get in Developer Academy. So I would tell you to make sure you check those out, and we will have our next cohort in 2025.
Yep, absolutely. As I mentioned in the presentation, we will meet you wherever you're at in your journey, and not everybody's at the point where they need to go through Developer Academy. There's lots of ongoing education opportunities.
Can you describe the estimated time scheduling commitment, daytime, evening, weekend, hours, weekend, thinking through balance with regular employment?
Absolutely. Hard to provide an estimate. It's, I think, going to vary based on the project. It's also going to vary based on the stage in development that you're in, right? It might be more intensive during construction than it is in pre-development. I'm not sure exactly how it will look. One thing that I will say is we recognize our target audience for this, our target developer apprentices, are people that have not made the leap to be full-time developers. So we recognize that everybody who's applying for this is probably has a job that they work full-time and has a life, and we have a life too. So everybody's got a lot of things to balance. So because of that, I think the advantage of having co-development is having cohorts where we can spread out some of the work. So it's not all going to fall on one person, because we'll have a cohort of 2 or 3 or 4 co-developers on a single project. That should lessen some of the burden. If it were just one person doing it, then it would be a lot more, right? And then we're here at Spark to provide technical assistance and to help make sure that you're successful, and to help make sure that the project is staying on time and all of that as well. So we're not going to do the work for you. That is the whole point of the program, is to get the experience of going through a development and having that applied experience. And it would be counter to the whole point of the program if we just did everything for our developers, right? The point is to allow these developers to lead these projects. But we are going to make sure that you're heavily supported by each other, by Spark, by all of our different resources that we can provide to make sure that you're able to balance this with other commitments that you might have.
Next question, can you do more than one cohort?
Yeah, I think maybe. This is a new program. I think that we kind of talked about coDA as a bridge to independent projects. So really who we're looking for are folks that can go through a coDA cohort and then move on and do their own thing. We don't want you to live in coDA forever. If there's a reason why you would really benefit from going through 2 projects instead of just one, maybe you go through and do a for sale, and now you want to go through again and do a rental to get some different type of experience there. That certainly is a possibility. But I would also note, as I did earlier, that this is going to be really competitive. We don't have a ton of slots that are going to be open, at least at first, until we can start to scale this model. So the likelihood of you being accepted for 2 different coda cohorts, at least at first, is going to be probably pretty low since we're anticipating having a lot of interest in the program.
Does Spark have banks aligned with the goals of the coda program that are willing to loan for capital?
Yes, absolutely. So we do have relationships with different banks that want to invest in the community. And I think this is a great opportunity. Of course, we have Spark Capital, and Spark Capital, I'm not sure if everybody heard, but Spark Capital recently became a CDFI just last week. So we're hoping that opens up even more opportunities for Spark Capital to be a lender on this project, and also with independent projects that that folks might be doing. So yes, the short answer is yes. We want to help you navigate the financing process, which a lot of times, as we noted, is one of the largest barriers to development. We want you to be successful. We want this program to address those barriers. So absolutely, it would be within everyone's interest to make sure that we can secure financing for these projects.
What size of multifamily projects are available? Duplex, triplex, fourplex, or larger? For sale product, does Spark help sell houses to help save on the agent fees?
Okay, sounds like 2 questions. So the first one is the rental. The first project that we have not finalized yet, but we're looking at, it would be a 4-plex. We're hoping to have that finalized within the next week or 2. So that's the kind of scale of a project that we're starting with. That's all that we have right now, but we're actively looking for, now that we have this pipeline of co-development apprentices lining up, and we have our application open, we're going to be able to start to scale the number of projects that we have. I can't for sure what that will look like. We might have some opportunities for larger developments than just a 4-plex. We might have some smaller rentals as well. So it'll really depend on what we have available. What was the second part of that question, Deanna?
Does Spark help sell houses to help save on the agent fees?
Yeah, so no, we are not a real estate agent. We're not a real estate brokerage firm. But part of the idea of co-development is to have cohorts that bring different experiences. So you might have a real estate agent that could help you save on some of those fees when you're selling the house on your development team. You might be a real estate agent yourself and be interested in partnering on a team like this to get a project done. So there's lots of different ways. We also have a lot of great options for referrals to work with different real estate agents in the community. There's a lot of different ways that we can look at it, but we're hoping that the collaborative approach will lead to some savings as well.
Next question, what pipeline do we currently have for project availability?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we've got the 1 for sale and potentially 1 rental right now. We're going to start out slow, hopefully add another project or 2 in 2025, and potentially a couple more in 2026.
Next question, what happens if someone doesn't pull their weight or doesn't complete?
Great question. What happens if you're not pulling your weight? I'm sure we've all been in a group before, where a group project before, where one of the group members does none of the work and the others are left doing their work for them. And that is not fun. So that is something that we've absolutely planned for with this. We will have a contract with developers that'll be between Spark and the developers. And there'll be stipulations for non-performance. So if somebody pieces out and we can't find them anymore and they don't want to keep participating, the consequences of that might be terminating that contract, maybe finding a new participant, or maybe just carrying on with the rest of the cohort. We want to make sure that everybody's pulling their weight and doing their fair share. And that's what really the contract is for, is to that, to make sure that everybody's very clear at the front end what their expectations and responsibilities are going to be. And if they're not able to meet those responsibilities and expectations, then the consequences that you might have your contract terminated. I'm hoping that does not happen often. I'm hoping it does not happen at all. I'm hoping that through the application process, we can vet individuals to make sure that you're going to be committed to this and to be contributing. I'll also note that we're contemplating that life happens, and so there could be things out of your control that make it difficult to finish a development. So yes, we do have things in there for if you have a personal issue come up that makes it difficult to complete a project, we'll have provisions where that can be worked out. Something that we'll obviously address early on in that orientation meeting.
Okay, next question. I like that Spark is supporting developers with this type of partnership. Can some of the same resources provided for coDA be applied to individual developers' projects? Resources like Spark partnering to leverage capital and support on pre-development cost.
Yes, absolutely. So that's what Spark Capital is for. And you can tap into some of Spark Capital's resources for pre-development, you can access Spark Capital for other resources that will also be available in co-development. Yeah.
Next question, how does the financing piece work again for the project? What is the 0.5% used for besides being a startup fee? Could there be any deferred developer fees? Could this coDA be used to work on a low-income house tax credits project?
Yeah, so it's really going to depend on each project how the financing works, and part of the job of developers is to figure out how it's working, right? And to make sure that the project is going to cash flow, or that it's going to be a feasible project, and that's part of what you'll be expected to collaborate on as a coDA participant. Yeah, if you are you're asking about the developer or the participation fee as well. So what that is used for is to make sure that you've got skin in the game, and to cover some of the costs that'll go into supporting our coDA participants. But as I mentioned, that's something that you could earn more than the participation fee through the developer fee once the house sells. That's something that you'll be actively involved in as a coDA participant, in making sure that that the project budget is going to work, and that the financing and the developer fee and all of that are going to work out and be feasible and worth your while.
It looks like that was our last question. Unless anyone else has another question, you can use the hand raise tool and we can call on you. I will say I had a lot of people direct message me about the video recording. We will do some editing and we will get that sent out to you if you registered through Eventbrite. I'm also going to drop my email as well in the chat. I had some people ask about Developer Academy, and I'll also leave our Eventbrite page so you can register for our ongoing programming as well.
Thanks for your attention. Again, my email is in the chat. Feel free to email me with any questions. It's also on our website. And yeah, I'm hoping to see some of you apply for coDA, and really excited about the potential here. So thank you, everyone.